I will pay you full and you don't need to fight. Cancel this last fight. I start laughing and I say, I came here to fight. I say, just put me and him in there and lock that cage and let me deal with the rest.
You're in the cage in a no rules fight and somebody outside the cage is slashing you with a knife.
At that moment, the thing was so tense. There was people shooting, bullets flying everywhere. It was an intense and beautiful day. I miss those days a lot. Jiu-Jitsu is an amazing tool to help people. People say, but physically, I don't think I'm fit for Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu will fit you.
Henzo, again, I want to thank you for changing my life. I don't know what I would have done without the Jiu-Jitsu because of your academy in New York. It's why this show even exists. So again, I'm one of many millions of people around the world that probably owes you a big debt. You've got a huge heart, Henzo.
Thank you, my brother. It's a pleasure to have you as part of our family. Never stop dreaming. And people ask why I don't sleep much. It's because it's while I'm awake that I dream in getting better and making people around me better. I live my dreams and I make them happen.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Renzo Gracie, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, MMA fighter, and founder of the Renzo Gracie Academy. You are the grandson of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu founder Carlos Gracie and began competing in Vale Tudo, or no rules fights in Brazil in 1992, and went on to compete at the Pride Fighting Championships in Japan and the UFC in America. In a career spanning 18 years, you achieved victories against champions like Frank Shamrock, Carlos Newton, Maurice Smith, and Oleg Taktarov, and became one of the most popular fighters in the sport. In 2018, you returned to the octagon to defeat Yuki Kondo at the age of 51 in Legends Showdown and are currently looking for your next fight. You pioneered the growth of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in America by creating the Renzo Gracie Academy in New York City. You've trained legends, including George St. Pierre, Matt Serra, Ricardo Almeida, and John Danaher, with your goal to continue passing on your knowledge to champions of the future. Renzo, welcome to London Real.
It's a pleasure. You just forgot one little detail. You should have said the most handsome Gracie, you know?
That's true. You are pretty handsome, Henzo. I must say.
I tell them.
You're handsome. Now, Henzo, I got to start off and tell you my jiu-jitsu story. Can I tell you?
Please.
Okay.
I'm excited to hear it.
Okay.
You've been to my academy a few times.
Yeah.
I didn't have the opportunity to give you a hug.
Yeah, no. So I'll tell you my story. So it starts in 2001. I was in New York City. I was living the New York City bright lights, big city lifestyle. I lived on Houston between Avenue A, and I was partying, I was drinking, I was into drugs, and my life was going downhill, Henzo. I was almost 30 years old, and my life was a mess. And that year,
it's amazing how one thing drags the other.
Oh yeah.
You don't realize it escalates in such a way that if you're not careful, you know?
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. I had a girlfriend for 4 years. We broke up that year. As you know, 9/11 happened that year, so the planes went into the Trade Center. I was living not far away, and I overdosed from drugs that year, all right? I overdosed from heroin that year, and it was the lowest point in my life. And luckily, I got out of New York City because I had to get out of that city, and I moved to London in January 2002. And about 4 months later, one of my good friends from New York called me up and he said, Brian, you gotta try something. And I said, what? I said, what? He said, it's called Jiu-Jitsu. I'd never heard of it before. Nobody had really heard of it unless you really knew what was going on. And he said, you gotta try it. And And Henzo, I had never done any real physical activity in 10 years since I was in high school, right? I was all about my brain. You know, I studied in engineering. I worked on Wall Street, all that stuff. And I Googled it. Google was probably just invented. And I found a guy in London who was one of Renzo Gracie's students, actually. And we started training one Saturday a week. And I kid you not, Henzo, I trained every week for 8 years. One Saturday became Saturday and Sunday. And Jiu-Jitsu gave me my life back. I was a shell of a man, and it built me up. It got everything back right in my life. I got my blue belt, got my purple belt later from Renzo Gracie. I started training boxing, Thai boxing. It changed everything. And today I'm sober. I got a beautiful family. I'm doing this show. But Henzo, if it wasn't, and my buddy was training, he was training at your academy in New York City. John Danaher was his coach. He trained at the old place on 37th Street and 8th Avenue. And I'll tell you, the last part of the story is I went back to New York City a year later. And I wouldn't go back to New York because I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to relapse. But I waited a year and I came back to New York and we went and we trained a private with John Danaher at your old studio above the Methadone Clinic on 37th Street. And that was my journey, man. And I've been, off the drugs since then. So I just want to thank you, man. You gave me my life back.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful, brother. This Jiu-Jitsu is an amazing tool to help people, to make them stronger. It's a funny thing. People say, but physically, I don't think I'm fit for Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu will fit you. Even if you're a midget, doesn't matter. You're going to be good. I have two students that they are handicapped. They don't have the movements from the legs. And every time they are in New York, one of them fights a lot, competes a lot. And every time he's in New York, I go there and I stay hours with them on the mat to exchange knowledge because they find leverages in things that for the fact that I have the movements of my legs, I can never develop. And I learn from them a lot. They come back to teach me, it's insane. So in reality, you just described Jiu-Jitsu perfectly. It adapts to you, it changes you. It's an amazing tool to make you build your inner strength and make a better you. It's amazing. And I'm in awe that what you just described me is what I've been feeling since I was 5 years old.
It's incredible. And like you said, it gave me confidence. It gave me everything. I taught my daughter Jiu-Jitsu, 7 years old. We used to go every week so she can choke me out now. And now my little boys are getting 3 and 4 and they're going to be learning Jiu-Jitsu too. So, and like you said, anyone can learn it. Grandmas, younger people, older people. And we'll get into later how you teach because that's something special. But I want to start off with your story because, you're a little bit older than me, not much. You grew up in Rio de Janeiro in the 70s, right? And I remember an interview that you gave one time where you said, my life was like the Johnny Cash song, A Boy Named Sue. And if people don't know the song, it's called A Boy Named Sue. And Sue is a girl's name if people don't know. So if you're a boy and you're called Sue, you get beat up all the time. And Henzo had his last name Gracie, and you're in Rio de Janeiro. So I guess everybody looks at you and says, oh, this is the tough guy. This is the guy with the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. What was it like growing up as a Gracie? What was it like growing up in Rio de Janeiro in the 70s?
It was very different, especially on the 80s. On the 78, I moved to Barra da Tijuca. And when I moved there, it was a very desolated area. And I started seeing that the females' relatives couldn't go to the beach because you'd have perverts there doing things on the beach. You'd have people selling drugs. And I was just a kid. I was 12, So, and then I went to surf in a spot. They kicked me out. They didn't let me surf there, saying that I didn't know how to surf. I was going to hurt someone. Get out of here. They kicked me out. I moved 500 yards down the beach, and I put a group of like 12, 13 kids that they were kicked out the same way as I did. And I started training. We started surfing. And I start teaching them Jiu-Jitsu. We together build a crew of in the end, we're like 16, 17 kids, average 12 to 15 years old. And then one day I say, now it's time for us to take over the good spot of surfing. So, and I remember this week I was in Brazil when there's an older guy he was a police officer back then. He was actually a lifesaver on the beach, and then they turned them into a police officer. So he's looking, he goes, Henzo, he just saw me there, because I always go back to that trailer where back then I remember the guys that used to come and give me a hot dog. They say, Henzo, you didn't eat today. Here, have a hot dog, you know? They always look after me. So every time I'm there, I just went there again to have a hot dog, and I left $500 for them, you know, and they are the kids of the parents who used to give me the hot dog.
Wow.
This is from Uncle Henzo here, you know? So, and the father was there, and he looked and he goes, Henzo, I still remember. I was here and I look and I see that bunch of kids, like 15, 17 kids walking. They could barely carry the surfboards. And they came over and I think, what the heck is this? And you guys came and took over the spot. We put up a pirate flag there. We only allowed to surf there, our friends and the good people. If you come and use drugs at the beach, we'd kick your butt. We clean. I went to school with the kids from remember the movie, City of God?
Yeah, of course.
I was in a public school, so we went to school together, and fate, because of the situation they were, made them all drug dealers, you know, they would sell the drugs. So I would go there and tell them, look, cannot have drug sales on this spot. Anybody that comes to buy drugs from us, make sure that he cannot go cross this street. Otherwise, we're going to beat them up. We don't want this. The police love us. Everything, like I was there now, the police come to hug me, you know, just now. They go, Henzo, they put in a statue of me on that beach.
They are.
Very uncomfortable with this because they normally put a statue of someone who died, never someone alive. I told them, maybe you guys wait a little. They go, no, you deserve to see this while you are alive. And with that, I kept all the kids on my side. I ended up opening a restaurant and bar that I run it and helped my family from I was 16 until I was 22. You know, I used to sell 27 kegs of beer a night. Was the #1 bar in Rio. Today, the whole street, it's bars and party. This street was based on my restaurant. And with that, I was able to run all my friends around there. I'll put them to help me work. I gave them jobs, and we changed a lot of lives. And one time, and we have my mother move out of the house. It was a big 10-bedroom house. So any kid that had a problem with drugs, with alcohol, we put them in a house with us. We teach them Jiu-Jitsu. We teach them how to eat the Gracie diet, how to do it right. And recently, I was in Houston doing a seminar, and I told the story. I was telling about this house. And that's the house that you see the fights on it. The door was never locked. It was never locked. And I was telling the story. One guy raised a hand and say, I know this is true. And I want to tell everybody that it's real true what he's saying. And then I say, how do you know? He goes, I was there, Henzo. You don't remember me, but I was there. I was 12 years old. And I had a drug problem, and you put me in the house. I lived there for 6 months with you. I said, I can't believe it. He goes, yeah, I was one of the kids.
Wow.
So it was an unbelievable childhood. It was different. I was just there now last week. I just came back from Brazil this week. And the police, when I decide to leave, they say, no, please, we're going to give you a salary. And we pay all the expense on the house. You keep doing the job. They call it the crazy guy's house. The crazy guys.
Because you kept order. You guys kept order.
Yes. Yeah, and we take care of the neighbors. There was no more people stealing in our neighborhood. There was no more perverts pulling over and bothering the woman. There was no more drugs being sold. It was clear. It was not allowed from that point on. And we had the support of the police, of the citizens, It was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable experience. And recently they decided to put a statue there of me,
Wow.
They asked if I want to from the chest up or a whole body. I said, we don't do nothing half. If we're going to do it, I want a gi on one side and a surfboard on the other. Yeah.
Wow. And so what's it like growing up in a family like the Gracies where, all of your grandparents and uncles, they all fight, but you don't have to fight, I guess, but then you guys all end up fighting anyway. So how does that work, that dynamic?
It's a funny thing. First, you have while the kids are looking in DC Comics to find their heroes, I had all my heroes inside my house. Everybody that I admire, everybody that I saw competing, that I saw how hard they work. And you have to understand one thing. I never thought I would be able to make money and just with jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu back then, you couldn't make a dime. I used to work the whole day, end up the month with maybe $800, $900, you know? And I was the lucky one, and I really work hard, sometimes 7 days a week. So I never thought I would be able to make money. I was looking to maybe be a lawyer, working in different things. I was buying and selling medical products from the United States and selling in Brazil, bringing to Brazil, because back then the Brazilians didn't have access to those equipments. It was many different things. And I thought, one day I'm going to be rich. It doesn't matter what. I work hard, and I think money is the result of a good work to do in life. But I was lucky that I moved to New York, and I end up killing. So I didn't need to do nothing else. You know, I live today in a mansion, and thanks to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And to be honest, I thought jiu-jitsu even took too long to grow. I really thought it took too long, because it's exactly like you say, such an amazing tool to improve people's lives, to change people's lives, to give you confidence. I remember the first time they made it was not even Facebook, or something else, the name before. And MySpace. Yeah. They made MySpace, and they came to me, Henzo, you need to put yourself. I said, for what? All the network that I need is in here. It's inside our academy, you know. And I already have trouble to keep everybody's name, so how come I'm gonna go? I don't need a social media. It was a funny time. And we end up having 1,500 students in the main academy in New York, the one that you came on 30th Street.
Wow.
And before that, above the Methadone clinic was the craziest time ever, you know? That was the first place that I could open myself, and I could afford to open. After a few fights, I opened the place, and someone told me, but there's a Methadone clinic here. I say, what is Methadone? And they go, Methadone? I say, let me guess, like Alcohol Anonymous or Drug Anonymous or whatever. He goes, yes. I said, don't worry, we're going to fix them. But I never realized that in reality, the drug level here was different from what I've seen in Brazil, because they had heroin, they had heavy drugs that I never heard of, you know, and to help them was extremely hard, believe it, to get. And I was angry because I couldn't get nobody from that clinic
to go to your
train with us. Yes, and we could fix them, you know.
Okay.
I became friends with them all, but I couldn't help them.
Couldn't help them. Well, I want to get to New York City for sure, but tell me more a little bit about Rio. I mean, growing up, it was a crazy time for you. You talked about getting stabbed, getting shot at, and then actually getting shot. And then later you went into some of the fighting, but like, what was it like back then? When we seen the movie City of God, I mean, was it that crazy?
It was. Even though the City of God, I would go there daily almost, because my friends from school were from there. And my mother always made clear, doesn't exist such a thing as social differences. If he's your friend, he can be in the mud and you're there with him. And that's how I was raised. I would go sleep in the favelas with them, on their house as a guest. They would put a blanket over something and I would sleep right there, you know, and they would sleep in my house too at the same time.
That's very Brazilian, right?
Yes, and we made friends. Once the doors and the windows are closed, everywhere is a bed, you know, like you can sleep anywhere.
Is that a Carioca thing or a Brazilian thing? Because
it is, I believe it's a Brazilian thing. Brazilians think like that, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because in Rio,
there's no place for me to sleep. They laugh. Every couch, every floor, every carpet, it's a bed waiting for you, you know?
Right, and so you spend time
you have a roof every time.
Because in Rio, the favelas are right next to the really nice houses, are right next to, it's everyone's on top of each other, and it all
very close, because the mountain is very close to the ocean.
Right.
So the wild people lives around the ocean, and then there's the mountains next, and normally the favelas expand on that direction, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because people don't want to live in the hills, so this way they start building houses there, and they end up staying there.
I actually went on a favela tour, which sounds like a horrible American tourist thing to do, but it was one of the best experiences of my life, Henzo. We went to, I think it was Rocinda favela, right there.
Rocinha. I used to go there on my restaurant. What happened back then, all the supermarkets would close on Friday night. They would only open on Monday. So the only place that I could buy meat, chicken, eggs, and a bunch of other things was on the favelas. So I was there every weekend, because we even though we had everything, we would sell out completely by Friday night. Okay. So on Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was in the favela And I knew them all. They would pass by me carrying guns. Hey, Henzo. I say, hey, guys. Well, the first time I was there that I saw them, I said, are we in war and I don't know it? And
it was crazy. I think there's, and this favela, it's right in Rio. It's just north of Leblon, I think. And it's like 100,000 people maybe. And
it's more. It's more.
More. And we went into this, and it's not what you think it is. So we got a tour, and they allowed us to walk in, and this one of the favelas where I guess the drug dealers allow you to come in. And we went into someone's house, and you look at their houses, and you think it's like a shanty house, but inside his house, he had the big TV, he had the stereo system, and then I looked and I saw the whole favela, and you've got people living, you got open sewers, and then the drug dealers would walk by, and everyone would kind of be like this. But it all kind of worked somehow. It was something beautiful about it.
It is. It's different. It's extremely different. But you see, 99.9% of the people who live in the favela are very hard workers. People don't realize that. They are honest, they are hard workers, and then they want a good living like all of us, and they normally go on their house and they work hard to buy a nice TV, I remember my boxing coach lived in the favela. And I brought him on all my fights, on everything that I did. He used to work in an accounting office. Okay. The other day, someone sent me a tape of him telling the story. Someone sent me a video of him telling the story.
Okay.
And he was telling, the guy is filming him without him knowing how I took him out of his job. I said, you're not made to work in the office. You're going to work teaching box. Today, he has a huge program.
That's not Claudio Coelho, is it?
Of course.
I trained with Claudio up in the favela.
I love him. And the program that he runs in the favela, I say, this is your call in life. Take these kids out of go into the pathway of drugs, make them fighters. They're going to have a job like you did. And he ended up earning like 10 times more than he was actually earning when he was working in the accounting office, And the best was, this to prove that I wasn't wrong. The moment that he said, look, I want to try something, my student asked me to be teaching, and he's going to get me a group of students. I love to work here, but I want to try this. And his bosses say, Claudio, please go. And we wish you all the success in the world. But know one thing, you can come back here. You have a job at any time. You can come back and work with us. That shows how great of a soul he is,
That's amazing.
I know him. That's beautiful.
I know him. So a little, just briefly, I started, like I said, training Jiu-Jitsu in London. I fell in love with it, and I didn't make it to Rio until 2005, 2006. I trained at Gracie Barra in Barra da Tijuca. So I trained there. And then later, I trained at the Brazilian top team with Murilo Bustamante at the
Best, great teacher too. I love it.
And it was at the Bebe right there, by the lagoon.
Next to the favela. And there's a favela next door, the project.
Yeah, there's one right there. And at that time, the Brazilian top team was stacked with the people. It was like 2006 or 7, maybe. And I walked in, and it was both Nogueira brothers, right? Bustamante. It was Anderson Silva was actually training with them at the time. It was a couple others were there, and I was like, oh my.
Mario Sperry, everybody.
Yeah, Sperry.
An amazing team, amazing.
And Pride Fighting Championships, which we'll get into because you fought there. That was bigger than the UFC back then. And then at the end of it, of a week training with Murillo, he said, do you like boxing? I said, yeah. He said, I'm going to introduce you to Claudio Coelho. So I spent a week training with Claudio in the favelas, and it was amazing. But man, getting up there was tricky. Because you got to go through.
You went by the elevator or you drove?
The elevator was broken because it was Christmas. So I had to walk up the stairwell in the dark. Man, that took some guts. So again, Claudio's
different. It was different.
He's amazing. So yeah, great stories of Rio. Tell me how there's that famous fight in Rio where you're fighting in the cage and then the whole arena gets into a fight. And the reason I ask you about that, because maybe you can tell me how you got there in the first place. Like, why were you fighting? There was also different fight camps in Rio, right? Like the Luta Livre and the Jiu-Jitsu guys. What was it going on there?
The reason why I was here in America and I was having a problem with my partner, and I need money to cover the lawyer's expenses, to pay my green card things here and to set up everything so I could be independent. So I booked a fight in Brazil, this one that you're talking about.
Yeah.
A week later, I had to fight in Japan. Oh. And a week later, I had to fight in, so actually it was was a total of 15 days. I fought in 3 different countries: Brazil, Japan, and then Abu Dhabi, the Emirates,
Wow.
And then I came back, I could cover everything, take care of everything, and got my freedom. And that's when I went to open the school at 37th Street above the Methadone Clinic that you knew.
Wow.
And when I took this fight, I was going through a very hard time here. I took the fight, I come down there, and when I get there, the person who was organizing the fight, I told him, if you're going to hire security, it has to be this company that belongs to a friend of mine, because they will be the only ones who can take care of this. He want to save some money, he hired a different company. Right before the event begins, 200 people invaded the arena, and they surrounded the ring. And they are all luta livre guys from the ghettos, from the favelas. And they have weapons. It was something tense. So the promoter say, Henzo, I cannot. And the guys from the security now, once that happened, they almost fainting. I don't know what to do. How can I do this? So I'm in the locker room, stretching, and the fighting is beginning. And then the guy goes, Henzo, we are afraid. We are afraid for your health, because you may go in there, they may kill you, they may lynch you, they may... I will pay you full and you don't need to fight. Cancel this last fight. I start laughing and I say, I came here to fight. I say, just put me and him in there and lock that cage and let me deal with the rest. And it was a very intense fight, because every time my back would touch the fence, they would kick me in the head, or they would kick my hands, And I remember, as I'm fighting, I look at them and I say, I'm sorry, but you hit softer than my mom. My mom has heavier hands than you. And I keep going. At one point, I had my back on it. Someone cut me with a knife. Thank God it wasn't a stab. They just sliced. It was a big cut in my shoulder.
So you're in the cage in a no rules fight, and somebody outside the cage is slashing you with a knife.
That is like 200 people around. The crowd could not even see inside the cage. So every time I get near the cage, I'll get hit by one of them. And everything is going, I don't care, and I'm laughing, and the fight is going.
And this
guy who keeps hitting me, he keeps falling and hitting me every time he has a chance. I was keeping an eye on him. At one point, the ref pulled us apart. As we go apart, he puts the head here and starts cursing at me right over my shoulder. So I'm looking at my opponent across the ring. I walk back a couple steps, and I clock him right in the nose, like boom, I hit him. He falls, my brother higher jumps on him and beats the crap out of him there, and then the whole fight begins. It was like 400 people fighting at the same time. At that moment, the thing was so tense, there was people shooting, bullets flying everywhere. The lights fell. Almost, I started feeling a heat that I couldn't believe. When I looked, the lights were very close to us. Something happened outside that the lights end up dropping. And I remember that was so hot and my father said, let's get out of here. It was my father inside and my friend Sergio Inácio. So let's get out of here. We're going to carry you out. I said, no. We only leave after he left. If he's still in here, we keep going with the fight until it's over, until someone wins. And then my opponent left. He took off. He had a broken foot, I believe. He threw a kick and landed wrong in my leg and broke his foot. So they carry him out. Once he left, then I walk out. And it was people shooting, people fighting everywhere. They broke the whole arena. It was an intense and beautiful day. I miss those days a lot. I felt like I was in London with the hooligans.
So you love that chaos. That's proper karaoke chaos.
I felt alive.
And so
you're talking about getting shot. I get shot at many times. But thank God they didn't have good aim. They always missed it. There was one shot that went through my pants, the bottom of my pants, very close to my family jewels, and it hit my friend right behind me on the leg, on his chin, and broke his chin. And I remember how? I say, it went through me and hit my friend behind, because it was so close that the guy shot me. I was very lucky many times, until one day in a fight inside a club, one guy actually threw a shot and hit me on the leg. It broke my femur. you know, and I was jumping, and I was able to get inside the woman's bathroom. And when I got inside the woman's bathroom, there was like 30 women in there. I look at them and I say, ladies, there's a crazy guy shooting everybody. And the door has no lock. So I say, if he gets in here, we all dead. So hold the door. So it was 30 women holding the door. Nobody, when the police arrived, they couldn't open the door. That kept me alive.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that
I drove my mom and my dad crazy, but they're fine.
And that fight that you were having in that cage was no time limit, no rules, no gloves?
It was actually 15 minutes rounds. I think it was 3 rounds of 15 minutes, 45 minutes.
All right, 45.
So I think we did 1 round, and on the beginning of the second, that's when the problem began.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Did 1 round, and then the beginning of the second, that's when the problem
And that style of fighting was something that had been happening in Brazil or Rio de Janeiro for tens and tens of years. I mean, America hadn't seen that, but you guys, that happened regularly. I mean, your grandfathers and your uncles would do these no time limit fights, and
yes,
that was standard.
And I was doing that. We always set up. We had a problem on the beach. We don't fight in public. Let's go to the house. Let's go to the academy. And then we fought at the academy. That's how all the problems were solved, and that's how the first Gracie in Action VHSs were made. It was when we got access to a camera, we start filming one, and we start filming some of the fights, and that's what the product that you have on the Gracie in Action tape.
And that's where the Gracies they'd say, you want to fight, no problem, come to our academy, but we're going to film it. That's what you would do.
Yes. And whoever wins has the copyrights of the tape. That's the agreement.
Okay. All right.
That's how it works. I tried to do one now. I went to Brazil to fight Waleed on August 8th.
Right.
And I couldn't believe he deprived me of this new memory that I could carry in my soul until my grave. He didn't show up. He chickened out. I couldn't believe.
I mean, so this is Waleed Ismail. He's kind of a legend in Brazil, right? For fighting?
The ugliest legend. So it would be the ugliest legend fighting the handsome one. He was recently in the corner of Borrachinha against Adesanya in the UFC.
Okay.
On that fight, because he's the manager of.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So Adesanya say, who the hell is that gremlin sitting next to There's a gremlin running his mouth next to Borrachinha.
So you had a fight scheduled this year. You're 53, is that right?
August 8th. Yeah, 53. Yeah.
And Waleed didn't show up.
He didn't show up.
That doesn't sound like him. What was his excuse?
It sounds like him. People don't realize. You see, you have to understand one thing. When the dog barks too much, he doesn't bite. You know? So it doesn't sound like him because he looks brave, but when the time comes, he made an excuse. In reality, I put him in contact because he say he want to fight in an event. I put him in contact with one from Asia.
Yeah.
So one wants to put up the fight. They start booking everything, setting up everything. Next thing you see, he announces the fight in Rio a week before the fight that we are doing in Manila at one. And Chatri, the president and the CEO of one, was like, what is this? He was talking to me to set up the fight here. Now he's saying the fight is in Brazil, in a jungle fight, his event. And that's how he found a way to pull out. But it's okay. I made one promise, and it doesn't matter if we are in the Vatican, because old school, you know, I don't have still one gray hair, but I'm 53 and I'm part of the old school. Whatever I see him, I'll beat him up. We're going to get in a fight, whatever we are, you know? And then after we can have an acai juice, you can enjoy. But all the offenses that he did, he's going to have to pay for it.
So next time you see him, it's on.
It doesn't matter where.
I heard
Vatican.
There was an interview you did back in the day, maybe it was in that movie Choke or around that time, where you said, you know, this whole thing of scheduling a fight was new for you because when you were in Rio, the fight could happen at any time. And it's different than having a fight that's coming up at a certain time. And a lot of fighters aren't used to that.
Yeah, and not only this, it's very easy to get in a fight when you are emotional. You get angry, you go in a fight. But when you book, that's the problem with Waleed. He cannot. He books. He start getting afraid now. From the day of, he gets nervous. He gets anxious. I don't. My last fight at 51 years old, I was actually sleeping. I was out in the locker room. And my brother comes to wake me up. I say, it's time. He goes, no, there's half an hour. I say, what's wrong with you? Finally, I'm taking a nap. You wake me up. You need to warm up. I say, warm up? I cross half of the globe. I'm warm for a month. Just call me when it's time to walk out. That's it. I will jog to my walk-in, and then I'll be fine. And that's exactly what I have, a picture of me sleeping and me being raised with victory. And both pictures is half an hour, 40 minutes difference between both pictures, the time between both pictures.
I mean, Henzo, were you ever scared to fight, or was this your personality?
No, it's a funny thing. It's like we always say, if you're afraid to use the restroom, you shouldn't like Italian food. You shouldn't eat Italian food. So the reality, I trained my whole life. Everything that I did this, and I become a teacher, that I pass this knowledge and this confidence. So if I was afraid, I'll be betraying the most sacred thing I have, that I've been giving to my students, to the people around me. I can fight anytime, any day, anywhere, in any situation. I fought inside the water many times when I was surfing, and I had an arm lock from the guard inside the water that never failed. Never failed. I could get the guy in an arm lock, and I make him tap inside the water every time. And I never broke an arm. Even though they gave me reason to do it, I will make them give up. And look, if we keep fighting, the next time I'm going to get it again, and I'll break it. And they would agree, they let it go.
In the water.
Skinny, in the water.
So you're holding your breath. You're underwater holding your breath, putting your...
I was because it was so easy. There was no footing.
Okay.
I couldn't defend. So the moment that I grab the head, I spin, I get the arm, there's no defense. So I would keep it, and then I bring my head out just enough, and we both were like, and his eyes screaming, and I say, I'm going to break it next time. Because I was so skinny, they wouldn't believe. They would come to surf. They're good athletes, and they look at skinny little guy. I was probably at 16, 17. I was like 100 pounds, 105, So they look at me like, what are you talking about? I say, look, there's no surfing here. You're not behaving. You light a joint before you're walking in here. You cannot surf here today. Out. There's kids, our family are on the beach, and you want to smoke your dope. And you have to understand, we had one guy in our team that smoked marijuana. And we never saw him smoking, and he never smoked in front of the kids. The other day I'm walking here in New York, there's a guy, the guy lights a bong in the middle of the street. Now it's, I'm passing by, I kick him right away. I couldn't help. I say, when there's people passing by, don't do this. And he apologized. Because you don't understand. You start allowing this to happen. Next thing you see, there's a rapist there. There's a person who's going to steal. And he's not going to steal from you. He's going to steal from your grandmother. He's going to steal from your niece. He's going to steal from your nephews, from the children, the old people, your grandfather. And you let that escalate. Look what happened in New York now.
Yeah.
It was insane. You can't let that happen.
And that's a Gracie family thing, right? I mean, the Gracie family was always no drugs. The family is important. The diet. I mean, it was a
everything was like I couldn't eat sugar. There was a birthday party. We had over 50 kids. Everything going. The cake is sitting there. Suddenly get distracted. The cake disappear. Where's the cake? Where's the cake? We'll go find in the garbage. My grandfather passed by. You not poison the kids. The cake was gone. Well, how are we going to sing happy birthday? Put a watermelon, cut in half, put the watermelon there. And that's how we were raised, because I like sweets so much. And I would never get money for sweets. I work. I begin at 8 or 9, I was shining shoes. I shine shoes, make the money so I could buy my sweets, And then later, 11, 12, I collect tennis balls in a court. I would collect tennis balls so people could play in a club, and so I could make money to give my mother a gift and to buy the sweets that I love, the ice cream, the sweets that I love so much.
All right, so let's talk about Japan and the Pride Fighting Champions. I went twice to Japan to watch the Pride Fighting Championships. I think I went for the Chuck Liddell Rampage fight, and that's where
it was a beautiful one. I was there.
You were there. Okay, I was there. I flew over there. I mean, nobody was speaking English. I only knew about it because I was getting the videotapes. I mean, and then I went back again when Murilo Bustamante fought Dan Henderson on a Bushido card. But you went over there early. You had first of all, what was it like fighting in Japan? For people that don't know, Pride was massive then. It was bigger than the UFC. It was better than the UFC. Let's be honest. The production values were crazy.
10 times better.
100,000 fans, great fighters, Mirko Cro Cop, Fedor, Sakuraba, the Gracies were in there, Rampage. I mean, amazing, those fights. Classics.
It's unbelievable.
Great Brazilians.
I was in Japan 52 times.
52 times?
Yeah, 52 times, yeah. And every single time was an unbelievable experience. First, because I was educated. I was educated by my family with the concept of the beauty and the strength of the Japanese people, and my dream was always to one day fight there, to bring back the amazing art that they brought to us in Brazil.
Right.
My family was able to adapt it, improve, and make it so efficient. So even Japan had forgotten a little bit of their art that they taught us, and my family gave continuity, and we were able to bring it back and to have the opportunity to do that. The first event I did there that I fought was Pride 1, and it was 75,000 people in the arena, 72,000 people in the arena. Royce fought on the Tokyo Stadium, which is an open stadium for baseball, 110,000 people. So if a show there had less than 35, 40,000, it was considered a failure, Every show was a packed house. Every end of the year they had a show. And it was amazing, the quality of fighters that they brought. They brought the guys from Holland, the guys from K1 back then, the world champions in striking, giants. They had people there those the best fights I have ever seen in my life. They had Vanderlei Silva, Vitor Belfort, Sakuraba. It was unbelievable. And every time I was there, I made friends. For you to have an idea, recently I went there to promote an event that they were having. They were having the one event in Japan. And I went there to help promote the event. And when it was my time to leave the hotel, I come down with my luggage. As I get to my driver, there's a line of Japanese people, like at least 20 people standing there. And then I look, when I get outside, they all bow their heads, and half of them are crying when I'm leaving, like I couldn't believe.
Wow.
It was one of the best sights I have ever had in my life. I had experience there that I cannot even explain how well organized they are. And they became so popular. For you to have an idea, before I get my American citizenship, I had the Brazilian passport. So I was running from one side to the other. I had the stamp, the visa, and I believe the visa would last 2 or 3 weeks for Brazilians back then. If I recorded right, if I remember right. So I go in, I go there, I bring the fighters there. Then I have to come to United States to do something else, and and in my head, I thought the visa was still valid. So I go to the airport. I know everybody at the airport. They don't check to see the date of expiring my visa. They board me on the plane. I get there. When I get there, the officer look and say, "Your visa is expired, sir." I say, "Impossible. I just got it. It's up to date." He goes, "No, it's not. It's expired." So he showed me it was expired by 2 days, 1 or 2 days. I go, I can't believe I'm going to have to jump in the plane now, go to the consulate. It takes 2 days for a Brazilian to get the visa back. And to come back, I'm going to make it back here, I'm going to miss the fight by 12 hours. If I do everything perfect, I'm still going to be late 12 hours and I have to be the corner. It was my brother fighting. And I said, I can't believe it. I'm already picturing the whole situation that I will have to go through. The officer left, say 1 second, he left, he went inside. Comes back like 5 minutes later, say, Mr. Gracie, I spoke to my manager and he just asked me to tell you that we admire a lot of your work. We are very proud for what you do for Japan. And you are an exception. You are welcome here. You are welcome here with a visa or without a visa. Welcome to Japan. Boom, and he stamped my passport. So I have this passport, save it here, with the authorization to walk in with an expired visa. I still have the passport.
What's your favorite memory of fighting in Japan? I'm probably going to ask you about Sakuraba at some point because that's an epic fight that people remember. You know, it went 45 minutes and you broke your arm and you didn't tap out. I mean, can you tell us about that fight and that whole situation? Because he was being called the Gracie killer, and you were the third Gracie to fight him, or the second Gracie?
The third. What happened was I was supposed to fight him right on Friday.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.